Right.
Hello.
Good evening. It's Sunday, 29th November, 10 to 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
We've just had a great vinyl sharing, music sharing session,
Yeah.
I should say, and we're going to crack on and talk about what we listen to.
Yeah.
We started very low key for a change. Waltz for Debbie by the Bill Evans Trio with Scott LaFaro and Paul
Motion. Or Motion.
Motion?
I think, and
Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Well, what does matter is this is an incredibly essential jazz trio release from the early 60s. We listened to a track called My Romance with incredibly sensitive musical interplay between piano, bass and drums.
Yeah, wonderful record.
Fantastic.
I mean, the Village Vanguard stuff is great, I think.
Yeah,
all of
it's
it.
like the recorded on the same day?
Yeah. The other half, yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
And then from starting quietly, it was wound down to almost stopped altogether, actually. I played another piano trio. This is one of the first jazz records I ever bought, which is the Paul Bley Trio with Ken Carter on bass, who worked a lot with Steve Lacy as well later on, and Barry Altschul on drums. This came out in the UK on Fontana, but it came out on debut, I think, in the States. Played the track Touching by Annette Peacock. Kind of very much in a kind of extension, I guess, of the Bill Evans kind of trio in terms of its style. And of course, Paul Motion ended up working with Paul Bley as well. Just a quick plug for a book while we're at it as well. It's a book called Stopping Time, Transformation of Jazz, which is by Paul Bley. Really entertaining, quick read, actually. Really a fun book. Actually.
Yeah, and I've just read it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So recommend this, actually.
Yeah, and sort of got me, interested again in all kinds of stuff, including Paul Bley's first wife, I think, Annette Peacock, who also had...
Second wife, I think. Carla Bley was the first one.
Oh, that's right. She's just performed in London at Cafe Otto last week, apparently. This is a 1979 album. It's called The Perfect Release. I don't know if it is The Perfect Release, but it certainly sounded very good. It's her with an English band. In fact, it was the band who were backing Linda Lewis, apparently. It includes Richard Bailey on the drums, John McKenzie on the bass, Max Middleton on the keyboards. We listened to the track called The Succubus. Oh no, it was Survival, actually. It was the second track on side 2, which is quite a long track and has just a really great groove with Annette sort of speaking very profoundly over the top.
That was my phone.
That's your phone, Joe.
I don't know who's calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning.
It was. Yeah. Okay. So great album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as often happens in our sessions, Mark, we were talking about the music while listening to it, and Mark mentioned saying, I think probably Grace Jones listened to Annette Peacock just as I was pulling out a copy of Grace Jones's Warm Leatherette to play. Don't need to say much about this, I'm sure everybody knows this record, but there is a kind of connection between the two. Whether Grace ever heard Annette, I don't know. But
I suspect she must have done.
She must have done. The kind of spoken...
laconic spoken style.
Spoken style over
a funky beat.
Funky beat, yeah. Anyway, enjoying Grace Jones a lot at the moment, actually. Again.
I next showed up, there was a sort of slightly tenuous connection, which is Sly and Robbie at the rhythm section. Sly Shakespeare and... No, Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare. And they also were the producers and the backing band for Black Uhuru, sort of 70s, 80s band. The original singer of Black Uhuru was not Michael Rose, as many people might think, but this man, Don Carlos. And this is an album I picked up at a record shop in a new DIY venue space in southeast London last week. And we listened to the track, which I also happen to have on 12-inch, called Late Night Blues, which is a sort of fantastic early 80s roots dance hall, sort of very intense heavy bass line with an incredible syndrome sound, and the beautiful sounds of Don Carlos and
Great
his
singer.
harmonies. The album's called Pure Gold.
Then there is an early Black Uhuru album available, I think, with Don Carlos. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, from Don Carlos then went to the Slits, and this is Slits were a kind of UK punk and post-punk band, mostly made up of women. Well, the main artists all women in the band. Played the track Man Next Door, and the reason my tenuous connection here was Man Next Door was originally by, I've completely forgotten again, Horace Andy, and once I saw Horace Andy and Don Carlos together. I think this is almost my favourite Slits release, actually. It's an EP that only came out in the States, and it has the track Man Next Door, which is the one we listened to, with a kind of interesting I guess a kind of British version of what a dub section should sound like at the end of it. Slits, great fun. They were one. I didn't really get into punk too much, but I really enjoyed the Slits very much.
Sounded excellent. I don't think anyone would have seen this before because it's only just appeared. This is Lizzie Emma. This is a CD. It's also available on Bandcamp. This is all connected with Heart and Soul, the organisation I work with. There was a strong connection with Lizzie and the Slits, both from West London. A strong kind of UK absorption of cultural sounds connection, I think. We listened to the track called See Me.
It sounded great, actually.
I'm now giving it to you, John.
Thank you very much. Then we had a break.
We did.
And then restarted with... let's leave actually, it's hard to see it. Then restarted with... I've gone on about Kip Hanrahan quite a lot in the past, actually. I've never seen anyone else actually showing his stuff, apart from Secretary of Funk, who's disappeared from the vinyl community. I played a track of Desire Develops an Edge, which is his second album, which is a kind of album and a half, really. It's an album and an EP. And played the track called... God, can't remember. It was the
full album thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was the track called Don't Complicate the Life.
Got there in the end.
Which was a kind of strange one for him. There's a kind of mixture of Afro-Cuban stuff with almost like a West African high life thing going on. I mean, all of his albums have casts of thousands on him, and everybody from Jack Bruce to Steve Swallow to Arto Lindsay on it. Anyway, I'm a big fan of his stuff. On his own label, American Clave.
Very eclectic stuff.
Yeah.
There was something about the rhythm and the kind of, I don't know, something got me wanting to play this, which is Joe Harriott. This is an album which is quite hard to come by.
It's very hard to come by.
Joe Harriott is was an alto sax player. I think West Indies, Jamaican in fact, around in the 60s in London, very much part of the jazz scene in London. We listened to a track called Saga. It also had this kind of weird kind of clash of kind of calypso, slightly kind of, you were saying kind of a Charlie Parker meets Ornette Coleman kind of sound. It's got Stan Tracy on the piano.
Sounded great.
It did sound good.
Could only have been recorded in the UK.
Absolutely, just definitely had a completely UK sound. And great tone and great playing from Joe.
Something about Joe's alto tone reminded me of Jackie McLean, and I have to have a Jackie McLean record in the box. This is one of the Blue Note reissue series, but although it's called Jackknife, although it was kind of misnomer really, because it was never, half this album was never released in the first place. Played the track called On the Nile off here, which is a great band with Charles Tolliver, Larry Willis on piano, Larry Ridley on bass, and Jack DeJohnette on drums. It's a kind of modelish kind of piece with some particularly nice drumming on it as well. But Jackie McLean, one of my favourites, goes right back to hard bop and then later on moved into more interesting exploratory areas. So Jackie.
Very nice cover as well.
Yeah. This series is good, actually. I mean, there's some good stuff in here as well. There's an Andrew Hill record, and they released the complete Thelonious Monk on Blue Note in this format as well.
I'm not quite sure what the connection was particularly with this next one. There's a VC connection in that I heard about this album via Derek, who apparently was at this very gig when Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters played at the Omaha Civic Auditorium on the 17th of November 1975. This it sounds like an amazing gig. It was obviously recorded for FM radio. It's a lineup where you actually can hear Blackbird McKnight playing, unlike, as we were pointing out, the Flood album, the live Japanese album, where he seems to have been removed.
Certainly seems to be the case. Yeah.
We listened to the track called Bubbles, which is off the album called Man-Child. Yeah, it sounded great. Sort of Herbie playing against one of those old school rhythm boxes, and then Mike Clark joining in. Kind of quite a mellow track, but yeah, really enjoyable. Great album. Thank you, Derek, for noting that this had come out and sharing it. Fantastic.
Definitely. Pretty tenuous link to the next one for me, actually.
Very tenuous.
I mean, it was kind of, I was thinking of live recordings, actually, and I've always thought this Little Feat, Waiting for Columbus record, is actually one of the most amazing live recordings I've heard. Actually, great mastering as well by Doug Sachs on here as well, and played the first. And I was actually at the gigs in the Rainbow. That was the connection. Actually, thinking about being at the gig. That's what it was. Where Little Feat played in London. But I had the Tower of Power horn section with them. Fantastic gig, and played the first track, Fat Man in the Bathtub, from this. Also worth checking out, if anyone goes to archive.org, but there's some amazing range of live Little Feat recordings there, which are all legit, and you can download them. Really good quality stuff.
The only link between that and this is the liveness. This is 801 Live. So this is the band that Phil Manzanera put together. Kind of plays some of the tunes off the Diamond Head, I think it was called Diamond Head album. Fantastic live sounding album. Amazing band, kind of really, kind of an unusual mix. Obviously Phil Manzanera is on the guitar. You've got Simon Phillips, who obviously had just discovered his double bass drum pedal, I think, before this gig, and was kind of really caning there. You've got Bill McCormick, who was in Quiet Sun.
And Matching Mole.
Matching Mole on bass. Francis Monkman, who was in Curved Air on keyboards. Eno, obviously, who had just left Roxy Music, on electronics and vocals, and someone called Lloyd Watson, who I don't really know very much about, who was on slide guitar and vocals. Recorded live at the Royal Festival Hall, I think in 1979, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Oh no, 75.
75. That has to be one of the last times that Brian Eno played in a kind of band.
Yeah.
Kind of situation.
Great. We listened to a track called East of Asteroid. Sounded very good.
Next up, I can't remember what the connection was. There was some kind of connection with Wilco's A Ghost Is Born. I don't know what it was really. Probably quite tenuous. Just something sounded like it. And I've always been a Wilco fan. Love their stuff, and played the first track. At least that's what she said on there.
Particularly vicious guitar solo.
Vicious guitar solo by Jeff Tweedy, I think. This is before Nels Cline joined the band. Although Jim O'Rourke had a hand in this one as well.
And Jim O'Rourke has had a hand in some of the stuff that this band have done. It's taught us.
They've had a hand in his stuff as well.
And they've had a hand in his stuff. There's a lot of people getting their hands in.
It's a Chicago connection.
It's a Chicago connection. It's the album called It's All Around You. And it's got a beautiful cover. And I've had this on CD for a while. But I just decided I'd like to have the vinyl on Thrill Jockey. And I can't actually remember what the name of the track was, but it was the first track on side 2 for you vinyl lovers. And yes, just taught us such an original band, just very hard to describe what they're about. They're very into sonics. There's kind of quite a strong Afrobeat thing running through this album. Lots of interesting electronics, lots of vibraphone, and just really interesting sounds. Very fresh, original album.
Yeah, if you haven't heard Tortoise, I think I can just about recommend all their records actually. Then we must have had a break because there was no connection at all with.
No, I think we had a Portuguese tart.
Portuguese tart.
As some of you regular
Listeners
listeners
will know all about. We made another appearance. They went for Roy Ayers, Ubiquity. I'm not sure. I think you wanted me to cue you up some.
I did.
Some disco funk
And boogie.
and boogie, and didn't have any. So I got as close to it as I could and played the track Domino off the Roy Ayers Ubiquity album, Vibrations. This is the one that's famous for having Searching on it and the track Vibrations itself as well.
I also have this album, but looked completely
Befuddled when I played the track.
and I didn't sound anything like Roy Ayers. But it was, and I understand now why it was. This is the other album I picked up last week at the DIY Space record shop, and this is pursuing the Roy Ayers connection. This is a band called 80s Ladies, unsurprisingly from the early 80s, and featuring five female vocalists who Roy particularly liked working with, including Sylvia Striplin. We listened to a track called It's Easy to Move, which is like a more sort of disco boogified version of You've Got to Move, which was a track that we've played before off an early 70s Roy Ayers Live at Montreux album. Great. This has also got the classic Turned On To You track on it. This is a re-release on Soul Brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds of Universal. It's good. So we went for a Roy Ayers triple and played a track off. This is a compilation that was on Charlie of Una Melodic, which was Roy Ayers' independent label he set up after he left Polydor.
Yeah.
Before he went to CBS, I think. And played a track off it. This is Roy. This is a range of his productions, including the 80s Ladies, Sylvia Striplin, Ethel Beatty, and played the track by the famous, I guess, Rick Holmes, who was also the voice on quite a lot of Cannibal Adderley records. And the track, which is called Remember to Remember, where he basically recites the names of probably a lot of people watching this record collections, and
Yes.
over a kind of slow groove. Really, it's hard to say why. It does kind of. It's almost cheesy, but it just about
kind
works.
of works. It's
Kind
some
of
lovely
does.
kind of mini
Yeah.
moog stuff going on in
Yeah.
the background,
Yeah,
and again quite sort of profound message
yeah.
that he's getting across.
This is a good compilation. It's getting absurdly pricey now to buy, even as a CD, unfortunately.
Well, we actually had our fourth selection in the Roy Ayers extravaganza. John pointed out that this album apparently is Erykah Badu's favourite album. It's Ramp's come into knowledge,
Yeah,
which many people know because it's got an even better version of Everybody Loves the Sunshine than the Roy Ayers original. But it also has the track Daylight as sampled by Tribe Called Quest. And these tracks just sort of float off the vinyl with a nice rim-shotty groove.
yeah, it's a great album. So, kind of going slightly more up to date on another CD, played a track off SOS's Brainchild, and SOS is Society of Soul. And this is, I think, one of the first ever productions by the Organised Noise mob, who also were involved with Outkast and Dungeon Family, all kinds of people.
Sleepy
Brown, and played the track called
CeeLo Green,
indeed, as well. Played the track called Pushin', which is great. It's just a great album. This. Who was you saying somebody else is a fan of?
Ben.
Hello, Ben.
Ben. I got a 12-inch of these guys as a result of Ben talking about them.
And played the track called Pushing off here, which is got a great bass solo on it as well.
It's got a very nice, what's envelope filtered bass solo for
Yeah.
you bass heads out there.
Yeah. But you can pick this up for pennies basically on just about anywhere. But it's a great record.
I said to John we were going to shift gears,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we did with the track Shifting Gears, which is a Johnny Hammond album. Very
Subtle move. That.
Very subtle that was. Incredibly subtle. It's probably Johnny Hammond's best album, I think. Mizell Brothers produced all the regulars on board. Julian Priester on the trombone, Roger Glenn on the flute, Michael White on the violin, does a great solo on this, and of course the wonderful Chuck Rainey and Harvey Mason rhythm section. And we listened to the track called Shifting Gears. This has just been re-released, apparently with bonus tracks that have never before been released. So if you don't have this album, seriously recommend it.
Re-release, yeah, definitely. Sticking with the Mizell Brothers and Rainey and Mason and Co. went for Donald Byrd's Stepping In Tomorrow and went for the title track, which I think this was the third album he did with the Mizell Brothers. I can't quite remember. A lot of people hate this stuff. I love it, actually. I mean, I love the Mizell Brothers production. I love the stuff he did with them. Obviously completely different to the hard bop stuff he did earlier on and the stuff he did later, in fact, as well. But, I mean, amazing rhythm section playing, mate. And that's what makes these records work.
They've all just got incredible cooking grooves.
Yeah. And they worked very much like James Brown type rhythm sections work, by just playing grooves for a long time to get the thing locked in properly. So Donald Byrd Stepping Tomorrow on Blue Notes. Results.
I finally got to the soul boogie disco thing after all of this Royers and Mizell Brothers journeying. This is a brand new album that's just been released on triple vinyl. It's called Private Wax Volume 2. It's a lot of very obscure and rare soul disco boogie from the late 70s to the early 80s, curated by a guy called, he's got a vinyl in his name now, he's called Zaf Love Vinyl from the UK, from London. And I heard an interview with Zaf Love Vinyl on Giles Peterson a couple of weeks ago on Six Music, and we listened to an incredible epic track by the soul singer Lou Johnson called Keep That Fire Burning, that apparently he had released on his own label. And it is an epic with strings, vocals, horns, breakdowns, slap bass, soulful vocals. Great stuff if you like that kind of music.
Yeah.
Lots of rare gems here.
It's great, but Lou's not got really a typical disco voice.
Not at all.
It's kind of real southern soul kind of voice.
Yeah.
So staying with the kind of disco period, but also getting a bit more funky, went for the track Dead on It from James Brown's Sex Machine Today album. This is kind of one of his most maligned records, and in fact, to be quite honest, the whole album's not great, but the track Dead on It is absolutely brilliant.
I mean, as you can see, the cover is an absolute classic.
Absolute classic with bad taste and bad design and everything else that goes with it, really. But Dead on It's a great groove, actually. And some nice playing from Maceo Parker and Fred Wesley.
The cover only possibly surpassed by this one, which is James sitting on a sort of bamboo chair underneath a very large disco ball in an empty nightclub. I think he was having a bit of a tricky time with disco at the time, hence the album title, The Original Disco Man. But a great track actually called It's Too Funky in here, which I hadn't listened to for about 20 years. And it's sounded good. It's got a strong kind of P-funk element in the backing vocals, which are kind of unusual to have female backing vocals on James Brown music, but it sounded great.
Yeah.
And we think that it might have been produced and arranged by Brad Shapiro, who John thinks has some connection with Saturday Night Fever.
I think so. I might be completely wrong.
Could be wrong, folks.
Somebody will correct us.
Yeah.
So from something that sounded P-funky to some P-funk, and played the track off Glory Alice Stupid by Parliament, which was the title track, Pin the Tail on the Funky. You can't expect sense from George, really. This was one of his later, this was the last but one Parliament album. And it's P-Funk. It's what you expect, really.
Yeah.
Stupid lyrics.
Cast of Thousands.
Cast of Thousands. Wiggly synth sounds. Horn sections. Great playing.
Yeah.
Daft lyrics. Wonderful, really. I love George. So.
Yeah. We definitely had a break and possibly sampled some fine goat's cheese. Sheep's cheese.
Sheep's cheese this time.
And then came back. There's another record shop that I've just discovered in Canterbury, which is not far from me. And I came across this album, which you don't see out in the wild very often, which is Tonto's Expanding Headband, and the album Zero Time. And we listened to an amazing track called Jet Sex, which definitely sounded pretty...
Jet sexy.
Very jet sexy. It sounded incredible. Probably, we were thinking this came out in, I think, 72, and it has some really low-end, throbbing sub-bass synth lines going on, sounds. Very much a kind of sort of soundscape, sound collage. But yeah, great stuff. And this was, I guess, bang in the middle of when these guys were collaborating with Stevie Wonder on that incredible sequence of albums that started with Music in My Mind.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the connection was with the next piece. I think it was the vaguely kind of spacey stuff going on here. But I played a track off, this is a compilation called The Standing Eight, which has the 3 Russ Amrone and Kirk albums on Warner Brothers. The compilation was put together by Joel Dawn, who of course produced these records as well. And I played the track off, I've actually got this on vinyl as well, but it sounds terrible, my bad copy, from The Return of the £50,000 Man. The theme for the Eulipians, which is a great piece with a very weird spoken word intro, and some nice kind of, almost like kind of choral singing going on in the background. And a great tenor saxophone solo from Russ Amrone and Kirk.
Yeah, it sounded really nice production.
This is, I mean, if you have got the vinyl and you want to get the CDs, it's a good package to get, actually.
We then sort of entered an acoustic section of the night as it was getting quite late. Last time John came for a session, we ended up going to a local sort of, I guess, a local vintage shop that has quite a nice little record section in it, and I picked up Zuma on John's recommendation. I have to say it's a fantastic album. We listened to the track Through My Sails, which is very short, but kind of has Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young back together again.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
Beautiful track.
Very nice track. I actually, on the same trip, bought a copy of Deja Vu, which I used to have and don't have anymore for some reason. And we played the title track off Deja Vu, which sounded amazing, actually. I have to say, a lot of this album I don't like too much, actually, but I do like the title track and some of the other, a couple of other pieces on there as well.
I was enjoying the bass solo.
Yeah, there can't be many kind of mainstream pop records with a kind of 1 minute bass solo at the end of it as well. Anyway, great record.
This is an album which I've only just discovered. I'm sure many of you know. John certainly seems to know all about it. It's the album London Conversation, John Martin's first album that he made when he was only 18, which is pretty much him and an acoustic guitar. There's one track where he's joined by a sitar as well. We listened to the track called Back to Stay, which is hauntingly beautiful, and his voice really belies his age. It's quite extraordinary to think he was so young when he recorded this, and some of the songs sort of a singing of someone who sounds like they should have far more experience. But yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, it was around the time he first came to London, I think. He was playing in the folk clubs. Your cat's kind of collapsed over there. I hope she's all right.
Oh, she's just sleeping.
Oh, sorry, that's good. So from...
Don't worry me like that, John.
They should like, the heads are upside down.
No, just look, she's still breathing.
Oh, good, that's good, that's really good. So from John Martin went across the Atlantic to Jackson Browne's first record, sometimes called Saturate Before Using, but also just called Jackson Browne. Played the track Jamaica's Say You Will, which has been covered by absolutely loads and loads of people. I like Jackson Browne. I think he's a good songwriter. Has good musicians playing on his records, and he's still good now, actually.
Followed up with another singer-songwriter. I showed this in an earlier video with a VCLT thanks out to Ben Connors, and it was Steve Tilston, An Acoustic Confusion. We listened to the track called Prospect of Love, and noted particularly on this track how similar he does sound to Nick Drake, but still he has his own sort of sound, but just beautiful, just to hear him and his guitar. Very
nice stuff. Then went for something I've tried to buy on vinyl several times, but only had really bad copies of. It's Gene Clark's, and this was the demos for the White Light record, and it's called Here Tonight, and it's actually like a whole other record. In fact, if you know White Light, it was one of his kind of not quite as big a production as the famous one No Other, but almost in that kind of style. And this is basically him, an acoustic guitar and a harmonica, and it's fantastic, actually. Gene Clark's one of my absolute favourite songwriters, and I played the track Here Tonight, the title track.
Yeah, I then played my last track of the night, which again I showed in the last video saying thank you to Ben. It's the first Penguin Cafe orchestra album called Music from the Penguin Cafe. We listened to the track called The Sound of Someone You Love Who's Going Away and It Doesn't Matter. Quite melancholy, quite beautiful, and then it went quite strange actually towards the end.
Yeah.
And then went kind of back to the original bit again.
You need to say it was Ben Costello, not Ben Connors.
Oh yes, I am thanking Ben Connors, who is someone completely different.
He's a cartoonist.
He is a cartoonist. Ben Costello, thank you. The two BCs.
That's right. My last track was from Lambchop's most recent and possibly last album, I think, given the long gap there's been since the material. Played the track off Mr. M called Kind Of, which is just a very kind of typical Lambchop, kind of almost like a love song, which is not so typical, I guess, for Lambchop. Very nice record. I mean, I'm a fan, so I'm a bit biased, really. And that was it.
That was it. Clocking into a whopping 32 minutes.
So, the cat's okay, which is good.
Cat's okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's time to go to bed, I think.
Time to go to bed.
Yeah. Time to say good night, people.
Good night, everybody.
Love hearing comments and stuff, and be well.
Yeah, be well. Enjoy this.